The 2024 NBA draft class was viewed by most to be an underwhelming draft, a weak class, and a draft that wouldn't feature any future franchise-changing level players. And it made assessing and scouting for this draft incredibly difficult, where you have mock drafts leading up to the draft all over the place. You would see some guys going in the top 5 in some mock boards, while the same players would be at the end of the lottery in others. And of course, there was no consensus #1 pick. So going into draft night, you really didn't know who was going to go where. And of course, we ended up having a lot of surprises where you saw some players that were projected to go in the top 5 fall to the late lottery, others that went a lot higher than expected, and some that were invited to the green room that ended up not hearing their name called on day 1 and had to wait until day 2 of the second round of the draft. And even though it is way too early to be doing a redraft of the 2024 class, we're going to do it anyway now that we have 3/4 of the 24-25 season in the books. So in this video, I'm going to be redrafting the top 10 picks based on what we know of these players now and their first few months in the league. And I would love to hear how you guys would have redrafted this class if the draft were to happen today. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it in helping the channel get to 100,000 subscribers. Now, when doing this redraft, well, I'll obviously take into consideration how a player has performed thus far in the season and the level of impact they've had on their team. I will also be considering future potential, as a lot of these guys are pretty raw and project players that will take some time to develop, but based on their skill set, you can see a vision of them being great players in this league. I won't be considering fit as much, as I usually view the NBA draft as teams taking the best player available over fit on their current roster, especially when it comes to rebuilding teams, which most teams in the lottery are. So just calling that out to give some context on how I arrived at these picks. And so to start with the #1 pick coming from the Atlanta Hawks, they're going to select Stephon Castle. Zaccharie Risacher was the #1 pick, and he's been solid for the Hawks. I'm still going to have him going high in a redraft, but in my opinion, I see a lot more potential coming from Castle. In my opinion, he's the clear favorite to win the Rookie of the Year. He's been the best rookie so far this season. Obviously, he still has a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room to grow, especially when it comes to his shot and his overall efficiency on offense. But as a 6'6" point guard, he's a very well-rounded player, great handles, super athletic. His passing has steadily gotten better throughout the year. I just really like his game and the level of poise and maturity he's shown for a 20-year-old. And yes, I'm aware that this would conflict with Trae Young and likely wouldn't give Castle enough opportunity to really grow, but I also would not be shocked if the Hawks move on from Trae in the near future. With the second pick, this is where the Wizards took Sarr, and I'm actually going to have them keep this pick. Like pretty much everyone in this draft, obviously a player that has a lot of work to do when it comes to perfecting their game. Sarr needs to improve his shot and finishing around the rim. I mean, this season he's shooting at just 39% from the field overall and 30% from 3 and 62% from the free throw line, which is exceptionally bad. But he's only 19, one of the youngest players from this draft. He's a solid defender, great shot blocker. He knows where to be on that end of the floor and has great lateral footwork. He's a mobile big that has a quick first step to get past his man. Like, he has the tools to be a great modern day center. He just needs to work on his efficiency on offense with better shot selection and, of course, work on his free throws and three-point shooting. So I'll keep Sarr here at #2. At #3, this is where the Houston Rockets selected Reed Sheppard, which was a bit of a surprise as most mock drafts didn't have Sheppard going that high. Kind of tough for Reed because the Rockets have exceeded expectations and are now trying to compete, which has limited his opportunities to even get minutes on the court. As such, I don't have the Rockets taking him #3 here. Instead, I'm having them take Zaccharie Risacher here, a nice wing to complement their offense. Risacher, while he'll never really be considered underrated because he was the #1 pick, but in my view, I think he's been better than expected and does show a lot of promise as a scoring wing that can spread the floor. I know he hasn't been that efficient from behind the arc, shooting around 34%, but I believe that will come with time. And like Sarr, one of the youngest players in this draft, still hasn't even turned 20 yet. He's got length to deter shots from behind, even when his man beats him off the dribble. High energy guy, plays hard, and I think would be a great fit in Houston. At #4, this is where the Spurs selected Stephon Castle, but since he's off the board here, I'm actually going to have the Spurs select Buzelis. Yes, I know some are going to say I'm biased, and I know most of you probably don't watch the Bulls, so you likely haven't seen much of Buzelis, but I would not be shocked if Buzelis ultimately becomes the best player from this draft class. Not saying that he's going to be a superstar or anything like that, because even the best player from this draft class doesn't carry with it the same weight as previous drafts, but Buzelis Now that he's finally starting to get some playing time, has been able to show how talented he is. He's incredibly athletic, he moves well with the ball, can handle the ball like a guard, has a quick first step drive to the basket, he can shoot it from distance. Like Risacher, he's quick and long and can still contest shots from behind even after he gets beat. He's a very smart and savvy player for being so young, knows where he needs to be defensively, hustles, plays hard, plays with a ton of confidence. Like, as biased as I am, being a Bulls fan, Buzelis is a special player with a lot of potential, and it was shocking to me that he fell all the way to number 11 in the draft. And I would absolutely love this fit with him alongside Victor Wembanyama with the San Antonio Spurs. At number 5, this is where the Detroit Pistons selected Ron Holland, who I do like and have him going later in this redraft, but I'm actually going to have the Pistons take Jared McCain here, who the Sixers took 16th overall. People have kind of forgotten about McCain since suffering a season-ending injury, but before that, he was looking like the clear runaway favorite to win the Rookie of the Year award. He was a bright spot in an otherwise depressing season for the Sixers. McCain, coming out of Duke, was very impressive with his ability to score at all 3 levels. His shooting was much better than I expected at the NBA level, shooting 38% on near 6 attempts per game from distance. His finishing around the rim was solid, and I even think his passing is underrated as a 2-guard as well. Now, even though I don't think McCain's ceiling is as high as some of these other guys that I've selected before him, I still think he's going to be a solid starter in this league as he gets closer to his prime. Number 6, this is where the Hornets took Tejan Salon, and I like Salon. I think he's going to be a fine player. I believe he was the youngest player from this draft class. He was actually 18 when he was drafted. A very raw prospect, but I don't think I would have him go in the top 10 in a redraft. He might prove me wrong in a couple years, but instead, and this is probably going to surprise some people, but I'm actually going to take Kel'el Ware. I'm really high on this kid. I think he has incredible talent. He's an incredible rim protector. He's quick, athletic, moves well in the post. He doesn't take that many threes, but he can shoot it from long range, which is a plus when you have a big that can give you some spacing. I see a lot of potential coming from Ware. We've already seen the progress he's made from the start of the season until now. He's also been getting more runs since the Jimmy Butler trade. There's no doubt in my mind that in a redraft, Ware would go much higher than 15th overall in the draft. With the 7th pick, this is where the Blazers selected Donovan Clingan. I'm personally not as high on Clingan as others are, especially when it comes to his potential to others in this class. I would still have him go in the lottery in a redraft, but not in the top 10. As such, I'm going to have the Blazers select Bub Carrington, who ironically the Blazers actually selected 14th overall, but traded him to the Wizards just a few weeks later. Carrington, I feel, is one of those players that isn't getting enough love from this class. First of all, one of the few players that was only 18 when he was drafted, just 19 years old. People said he was too small, wasn't going to fit well in the NBA, and he's been playing well for the Wizards, starting most of the season now. He's a pretty streaky player. He'll have games where he'll go off for 23 points and then follow that up with 2, but you kind of expect that from rookies, especially with a rookie as young as he is. He's actually a pretty scrappy defender as well, good ball handling, decent passer. Again, like a lot of these guys, he still has a lot that he needs to work on and refine his game, but based on what I've seen thus far and thinking about his ceiling, I'm definitely taking him higher than 14th overall and a piece the Blazers can work with for the future. Now, with the 8th pick, this is where the Spurs selected Rob Dillingham before he was traded to the Timberwolves on draft night. I almost wish the Spurs had actually kept him because I feel like we would get to see more of this kid rather than the 12 minutes a game he's currently getting on the Wolves and at times getting DNPs. So because of that, instead, this is where I have Ron Holland, who, like I mentioned, went 5th overall to the Pistons. Ron Holland has the potential to be something special. I mean, people forget he was the number 2 overall recruit coming out of high school, a fast, athletic wing that is aggressive in getting to the basket and drawing contact, plays well off the ball but can also create for himself. My biggest concern around Holland is the shooting. Like, he's got to work on his jump shot to truly be effective and get the most out of him. 22% from 3 is pretty brutal, and a lot of those are wide open attempts. Teams are just leaving him wide open and daring him to shoot. He also does need to work on his defense, shore that up, and not always bite on pump fakes and getting beat off the dribble. The reason I have Holland still going so high is because I like the potential that we see from this kid, more so than others in this draft. Number 9, this is where the Grizzlies made a surprise pick by taking Zach Edey when some initially thought Edey was going to go in the late first round, some even saying he might fall to the second round. And while Edey has been great, one of the better rookies in this class so far this season, Edey is also about to be 23. An older rookie, I'm not as high on the potential and future upside of him over some of the other guys in this class. He's still a solid big in this league though. I mean, who wouldn't if you're 7'4", but it's why I don't have Edey going higher, as I'm sure probably some would expect him to be higher in a redraft just based on how he's been comparing to his peers and showing up well even for a team that is trying to contend. I didn't take him higher, but instead I kept him here with the Grizzlies, taking Zach Edey because They needed a big. They needed a player that was a little more NBA ready instead of a project player, and he has been impressive with his ability to work in the pick and roll, post up and finish, crash the boards, and then obviously protect the rim on the other end. And then finally at number 10, this is where the Utah Jazz selected Cody Williams. Cody Williams has been a bit underwhelming thus far, especially for a team that is trying to prioritize development of their young players. So instead, also probably surprising for some, I'm having the Jazz take Nikola Topic with the 10th pick. Topic was the 12th overall pick by the Thunder, suffered an ACL injury before the draft, so he slid to 12. But people forget that a lot of the mock draft boards, before he got injured, had him going in the top 3, in some instances number 1 overall. The injury obviously is a concern, but at that age, players are able to recover from ACL injuries nicely, and when healthy, he's a very talented player that can do a little bit of everything on the court. He can pass, score, get downhill in transition, but also facilitate in the half court. Some people have said he's Luka Doncic light, which I think is a massive stretch, but I think the point is he's a pretty versatile player on offense and is a threat when it comes to his scoring and passing. Like Luka though, his defense is pretty bad, but the reason I have him going a little higher than where he fell is because I do think teams are going to regret being wary of his injury and not taking a chance on a great facilitator, which is so important to have a proper floor general on your roster in this league to navigate the offense. So there you have it, my redraft of the 2024 class and where I think players would fall if we had a draft today. Let me know what you guys think and how you would have drafted differently. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.